West Orange and South Lake counties. This is my third term in the Florida House. Thanks for re-electing me, I appreciate it. I'll be chairman of Finance and Tax this year, and I believe that covers the waterfront.
Do you have anybody in the audience?
Oh yes, my aides are here, thank you. My legislative assistant, Kelsey Woolman, and my new district secretary, Maggie Michler. Thank you.
I'm Marlene O'Toole. I'm state representative from District 42, which is Lake County, Sumter County, and a portion of Marion. And this was a long ride today. And it's beautiful to see this new library. It's my first opportunity. I am serving as a chairman for Higher Ed Appropriations Community Colleges. I'm a vice chair with the full Education Committee. I'm on Government Ops, Appropriation and Policy, and there's one other, but I forget. I'd like to introduce Josh Blake. Josh is my aide down in the district. Josh, stand up so they know who to beat up if they need something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Charles VanZant, State Representative for District 21. Actually, the portion of Lake County that I have is everything north of Altoona. And so if you want to come to the country, call me. And we have a lot of open land there and sparse population, unlike what you're growing to see around this part. I'm on the select committee to investigate what to do with all of Florida's water, so that would be of interest to you. I'm also vice chair of the Criminal Justice Policy Committee, which will be determining what to do with the prison reform, which is also of interest in this area. And I'm very much supportive of this community college. And right now I'm serving my second term in the House, and glad to be here today. Thank you so much.
I'm Alan Hayes. I'm state senator from Umatilla. It's my first term in the Senate after serving 3 terms, 6 years in the Florida House. I chair the General Government Appropriations Committee in the Senate. I have several state agencies whose budget we oversee. Then I also am a member of the Agriculture Committee. I'm a member of the Reapportionment Committee, the Committee on Children, Families, and Elder Affairs. I think my gray hair and sparse hair qualified me for membership on that committee. And then I'm like you, Marlene. Excuse me, Marlene. I too forgot some of the others. But anyhow, I did not bring any of my office staff. I decided that they didn't do anything but sit here anyhow. If you need help from us, don't hesitate to call us. We're in the phone book, and they'll be here if they need to be. But otherwise, we're going to save state money and not spend travel expenses today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Larry Metz, and I represent District 25. And I'd like to introduce my aide, Hilda Quintero. Hilda, would you please stand? Hilda's here. And my legislative aide, Lance Steffen. Lance, please stand up. Thank you very much. And I want you to know that they rode with me in my personal vehicles. I'm on the road chatting about things. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm looking forward to working with my fellow members of the delegation and representing all of you here in Lake County. And my committee assignments were announced in mid-December. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, the Civil Justice Subcommittee, the Justice Appropriations Subcommittee, K through 20 Education Innovation Subcommittee, and the Health and Human Services Quality Subcommittee. So I have 5 committee assignments. I'm looking forward to the opportunities that those assignments present. I'm grateful to Speaker Cannon for putting me on those committees. And I look forward to hearing from you today. Thank you very much.
And if I may, Madam Chairman, I remembered I'm also on the Higher Ed Appropriations Committee.
Excellent.
So Dr. Mojok and Dr. Holzenbach will be interested in that. And somebody left an Apple device here. Oh, is it yours? Okay.
It's really not like that.
Oh, okay.
An Apple device. I'm not even sure what it is.
Yeah. You know, I can't even play the radio.
I'm going to take a little license. I don't think that's the kind of apple you actually want to eat in school, but saving the best for last, I wanted to introduce my legislative aide, Manager Martin Hall. Manager's 3rd year with me since we were elected, and does a tremendous job. Thank you very much.
Okay, and lastly, I'm Paula Dockery, and I've had the honor to chair this delegation for the past year. I think that occurred because I wasn't at last year's meeting. And that's why we're all here today. That's why we have perfect attendance. minutes. I'm at the end of my legislative term. I served in the Florida House, and now I'm finishing up my terms. My final term in the Florida Senate will be term limited in 2012. And I have with me today 3 aides. I have Yadira Holmes, Sarah Hardy, and Laura Rodriguez. And so please feel free to pass in any cards if you want to speak, or if you have any questions, just ask one of the 3 of them, and we are certainly going to get to everybody who wants to speak. With that I wanted to just briefly tell you what we anticipate the meeting being today. A lot of people in the past have commented that there are working people that couldn't get off in the middle of the afternoon to come testify. Can you all hear? Yeah. Is that better? Is that better? Okay. How about that? Then I'll just talk really loud. It's our intention to have some public testimony in the evening hours, so people who work that couldn't get off work to come see us would. So we anticipate meeting to go over the agenda today to get through the local governments and public organizations. If there is any public who does want to testify during this earlier portion, they're more than welcome to do so. We're going to take a break for us to have a quick bite to eat around 5 o'clock, and then we anticipate reconvening at 6 o'clock for the public testimony portion. So, but we want to be accommodating to anybody who showed up at either time frame so that they can be heard. And with that, let's move right into our presentations. We have first up the Lake County Board of County Commissioners, Jennifer Hill, Chairman. Jennifer, welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to allow us to speak to you today. We provided for you earlier our legislative package, and I'm going to be brief. I see you have a long afternoon ahead of you, so I did want to introduce some people that came with me, and one of those is our newest commissioner, and that's Sean Parks. I believe I saw him coming in. And we have quite a few staff members, and I hope I got them all. Aaron Gray is our deputy county manager, Wendy Brady, Dottie Beatty, Jim Stuyvender, Ken Harley, and Greg Wellstead. And have I missed anybody? Okay. Well, we are well aware that your budget is seriously stressed, as ours is, and so we have limited our request to 5 items of major importance. We thank you for maintaining your support in continuing our state aid to our libraries. That grant is very, very important to us. We have record-breaking numbers of Floridians that are trying to turn their public, who are turning our public libraries for help during these challenging times. Our libraries have become increasingly important to the community, and job seekers are getting help learning about jobs and applying for jobs within our libraries. So we appreciate you continuing that support, and that is helping us lower our unemployment rate. So most importantly, the state aid, for those who may not know, if you eliminated that, which would eliminate our federal funds. So I wanted you to be aware of that. That would affect a wide range of our programs. Under tab 3, I'm skipping over tab 2 because we took care of that yesterday. It was of high importance, and we found some funding within some stimulus money, impact fee money, and that sort of thing that we have gone ahead and we are starting to implement tab 2. So I wish that you would delete that out of your book. And under tab 3, this is funding for our Transportation Disadvantage Program, and the board would like to thank you and ask that you would continue to support our Transportation Disadvantage Program. These are operational, essential services for our special needs citizens, and cannot always do it for themselves. Under tab 4, you see, it It's a request for acquisition of right-of-way, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory unless you have questions. It was in our previous package for the previous year, so I'll move on to tab 5. I'm sure this is going to be...
Jennifer, on that last issue, on the acquisition of right-of-way, is this new funding you're asking for, or is this something that's already in the 5-year work plan? Is this something that you've already been involved in with DOT to?
Yes, we are. And they have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they have already funded the PP&E, which is the design. I think it's around $600,000 for 3 phases of that trail. Okay.
Is the railroad donating any of that right away at all?
I'll have Jim.
Jim Steiner, Public Works Director. Senator, the railroad has, based on your conversation with them, has communicated with us, and we are talking. We haven't finalized some of the negotiations for the donations, but some they have different title for. So the ones that they have certain titles for, we're going to buy. Other titles, we hope to be donated. And on your question about DOT has $2 million in their program for capital purchase, with the understanding we acquired the right of way. We're trying to keep this trail going. This connects from here to South Lake High School and Grove.
Is this a Rails to Trails
Yes,
project?
it
Is this part of Fort Fraser? Trails? Not Fort Fraser,
It will
Van Fleet.
Van Fleet,
It will
yes.
reach the Van Fleet.
Oh, okay, and then how long will that whole trail be? I think it's something like 36 miles now, that would make it something like 52.
Theoretically, you'll be able to get from Apopka all the way through Claremont to the Sumter County line and the Van Fleet Trail, if we connect this.
Actually, to the Polk County.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, tab 5. And I may have to defer this one too if you have questions on it, because this has to do with water. This is the requested changes to our water management district enabling legislation. And I do have a staff member here who's very technical in nature. If you have questions regarding this tab, I'll rely on Greg Lusted, who has been working on our behalf with the 14 cities as well as the Congress of Regional Leaders and at the state level. Is there any questions?
My question would be, is this something that's just going to affect St. Johns River Water Management District, or is this going to be a statutory change that will affect all 5?
This really is an initiative of the Congress of Regional Leaders who has been studying water strategy for the past few years. It really is an issue of making sure that when a city or a utility conserves water, that they don't lose that CUP allocation. They're remained with them so that they can grow into it in the future. So that if a city, for example, doesn't conserve water, the city that did say loses the allocation because somebody doesn't.
Is it only applicable to municipalities, or would it be applicable to large landowners?
It's applicable universally.
Statewide statutory change, yeah. And do you have a sponsor for this piece of legislation?
We do not.
And you're on the water board?
I'd be happy to speak with you in the future, sir.
Check with me also, Greg. I've got a water management district bill that this might fit into quite easily. We need a house sponsor, which Charles can certainly take that. We used to 6 yet?
Yeah, go ahead.
You may want to understand it a little better first.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I will tell you for background that I sponsored Senate Bill 444, which was the major water rewrite back in 2005, and we wanted to reward people who conserve water. We wanted to have conservation rates, and I believe that legislation ought to be such where you're rewarding good behavior and punishing bad behavior. But I also, what we want to do is those who conserve water, we want to free up those resources, not necessarily keep them out there. So my concern is not with municipalities, but with large landowners who don't need the water but want to maintain the consumptive use permit when that water could be used elsewhere for more beneficial purposes if it's not needed. So that's my only concern is we want to, if it could be directed more towards municipalities and water supply authorities rather than universally.
Sarah, I apologize, I misunderstood your question. It really is directed toward utilities statewide who do efforts to conserve.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
better. I'll take a look at it, that's great.
Okay. Under tab 6, this is a new request this year, and this request is the Board of County Commissioners request the support of Lake County Legislative Delegation to sponsor legislation that would allow Lake County to apply to the Florida Office of Tourism, Trade, and Economic Development for an enterprise zone designation notwithstanding the poverty rate standard. Lake County is currently experiencing an unemployment rate that is higher than the state of Florida unemployment rate because of the historical rural nature of the county, may not be able to meet the poverty rate standard within the proposed zone. The county believes the designation of an enterprise zone would enable the county to enhance their economic development programs by offering new and expanding businesses more beneficial state and local incentives. I apologize for reading to you. I know you could read it, but I wanted to make sure that they could hear. Also, we are really, really interested in economic development, and that's going to be my push this year, and for a few years, I would imagine. And the county will develop a strategic plan for this. We will form a local enterprise zone development agency and submit a specific map showing the zone's boundaries that are part of the application process. And I can't stress enough that economic development is critically important. It's a very high priority to not only our county but our cities. We work well with our education partners and our business community, and we're always trying to find ways to turn this economic prosperity back to Lake County. And I think this would be just one more tool that our business development community would have access to. So it's a new one. It's very important to us. And,
Jennifer, several years ago, by the way, we changed the battery. Several years ago, I sponsored a bill to designate an enterprise zone in the Polk County portion of my district. Does this still need legislation?
I do think so.
And
Johnny's here.
yes,
Sorry, if I could speak to the issue.
I'm not sure this is helpful.
This is an issue that I have been researching on and off for the last 2 years, and I've had a lot of input on it as a result of the last 2 years. And I have a bill slot reserved for this, and my legislative aide is already working with me on the parameters of the bill to put in a bill draft. But we have an APAGA report coming out on January 11th about the Enterprise Zone program. So I didn't want to submit to bill drafting anything until I have that report and see what they say about the efficacy of the program to date. And we also have appointments scheduled with some of the county commissioners we want to vet the bill locally and then take it to Tallahassee so that if we are successful in getting it through, it actually works for you. So I'm happy to say that I'll be the advocate for that in the House, welcoming a Senate sponsor.
That should not be difficult to find.
We appreciate that, and for you jumping on it even ahead of time, because we know it's time sensitive. Since the 2005 legislation, I think it was a 10-year window. We want to make sure these last 4 years, I don't know how fast things may go within a new governor and cabinet, so we just wanted to really make sure we stress that. But we appreciate you jumping in, and we will be happy to work with you.
And Representative, if Senator Hayes is tied up with a lot of other bills, I'm happy to do that. I serve on the Senate Commerce Committee, and we do have a bill filing, a drafting deadline that may be ahead of yours. I haven't looked at your calendar, so just because you put it in drafting doesn't mean that it's in its final form or that we're committed to that, but just in order to get it in there, if you can send over whatever you have, we'll get the...
We'll check with your deadline so we make sure we meet your deadline as well. Absolutely. Thank
Very
you.
good.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, any comments on that? Okay,
Thank you very much.
thanks, Jennifer. Okay, now that we have a microphone, let's go back to one piece of business. It's the approval of the minutes from the delegation meeting in 2009. And members, if you'll look behind tab, actually it's before tab 1, there's a little divider that says past minutes. Did all of you have an opportunity to take a look at those? Let's take a minute to let you do that, and then I'll be happy to entertain a motion for approval or amending. And to staff, were there minutes, copies of minutes in the back, if anybody in the audience was interested? Okay. If anybody wants to see the minutes from last year, we'll give you one of our copies.
Move the document as printed. Second.
On a motion by Senator Hayes and a second by Representative VanZant, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Show the minutes are adopted. Okay, now we'll go to City of Mascot, Tony Rosado, council member.
He had an emergency, he had to leave.
Was there anybody else here who wanted to speak? Okay. City of Mineola, regarding Minola Turnpike interchange, Rick Roderick, councilman, welcome.
We can use this mic, but you have to turn off that one to turn on this one, so if you'd like to show that.
By the way, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Lake Community College for hosting us today, and it's wonderful to see this lovely campus and this beautiful library. I might suggest we do something with the microphone.
When we get our equipment money from the state.
This microphone is perfect.
You need to order some of these for Tallahassee.
Ladies and gentlemen of the delegation, thank you very much for having us and allowing me. Again, my name is Rick Roderick, City Council member for the City of Mineola. I'm also the Vice Mayor. I just want to introduce real quickly our new City Manager, Mark Johnson. He got on board in September. A number of years ago, right around 2006, we had a vision for a turnpike interchange slated for mile marker 279 in the Mineola area. And this is between SR 50 interchange at US 27 on the south side of Leesburg, in between that. It is located directly in the middle of those two interchanges. The interchange at US 27 is a one-directional interchange, and the interchange at SR 50 is already at capacity and has land constraints that would make future expansion difficult. The landowner of the location, one of the landowners is actually here today, but right now, has agreed to provide a substantial amount of land, as much as 100 acres, for this project, to allow for construction of the interchange if there are no right-of-way acquisitions issues standing in the way of the project. A couple of the points I just want to go over. We understand that the state does not have adequate financial resources at this time. That's why we're partnering with the landowners and the developers in that area to get this done. This is a significant regional importance in our belief, and it's something that we've done in the last 4 or 5, 6 years, actually 5 years. The DRI is 100% complete. The PD&E is 85% complete and is fully funded by the developer at a cost of over $1.5 million. Again, the developer has agreed to donate over 100 acres of land. In fact, we've got a meeting going on tomorrow in our town with the developers in this project. Thousands of temporary jobs will be generated by the interchange and surrounding developments. Directly create 5,200 permanent jobs at a build-out of the Hills of Mineola project alone. I don't want to get into all the particulars, but for those of you that are familiar with that area, there's at least 3 or 4 developing areas that are not developed yet. And in order to go to phase 3, and I think parts of it phase 2, but Mark, we need that interchange. And actually, in my mind, I was just thinking as I was walking up here, it would be really like a gateway to South Lake County. It would actually be the gateway to South Lake County, servicing, Minola, Claremont, Mascot, and Roble. What is this going to do? It's going to increase taxable residential property by $1.2 billion and non-residential property by $519 million, and a build out of surrounding property. There's a train of thought. When this recession is over, some experts believe, we could be in for inflation. That is really going to beat other times of inflation. And this may be a good time to really kick this off. There's no better time than now. It's going to decrease commuting times to Orlando, thereby reducing greenhouse gas emissions and save taxpayers a considerable amount of dollars annually. Increase accessibility to existing area hospitals and schools, decrease emergency response times to turnpike emergencies, relieve congestion at intersections that are over capacity. There's a great example. This is a great example of public and private partnership. Again, we have 4 developers, I believe, on board. Right? If I'm not mistaken. We got 3 developers on board with us right now that made verbal commitments to make this a priority.
Rick, can you turn your microphone off for a minute so we can ask the questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Turn it off.
Okay. Have there been public hearings on this project, number 1? And number 2, is there a DOT process by which there's some kind of ridership figures to determine whether or not an interchange is warranted? Where are you in that process?
If you want to help me out here. We had public, I can address the public input locally, yes. I don't believe we had any public input on the county level. Do you know if we had, Jim?
I turned my microphone off if you want to leave that on.
My name is Bruce Duncan. I represent the owner of the Hills of Minola, which is the project where this turnpike interchange will be wholly within. You've all heard from me for a number of years on this project. The public hearings are scheduled to be this quarter. When you said we're 85% complete, the public hearings are the final stage of the PD&E. The meeting tomorrow that he referred to is with the Turnpike Authority and with the surrounding landowners, as well as Lake Sumter MPO, and the county will be there, as well as the city of Minola. So we're very close to being complete with the public hearings. At that point, all we have left is construction plans and construction of the interchange. Your other question, I'm sorry, remind me?
Oh, is this well on its way? I mean,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, the Turnpike Enterprise has slated this particular mile marker for a number of years for a much-needed interchange.
So you're not asking us for anything, you're giving us an update? What are you asking for?
Well, we'd love to have a little bit of money to build it. For us, I mean, we're talking about an interchange with some substantial cost. The developer ourselves, I mean, we've, to this point, spent 1.5 for the PD&E, but probably an additional $6 to $7 million getting this project to this point where it's ready to be developed. The 100 acres of property that we're going to be donating is probably worth another $6 or $7 million that we've given in order to facilitate this interchange. We'd like to get some of the public part of the participation in this public-private partnership is what I'm trying to get.
Okay, now I'm not sure that this has happened on the House side, but on the Senate side, we can't have any member projects this year. So all funding for transportation projects are going to be through DOT in their normal process. So are you asking us to encourage DOT to include this in their work plan? Is that the ask?
That is the ask. And Ms. O'Toole, Representative O'Toole, was very instrumental. We met with Secretary Koplousis. She's interested in this interchange as well. You're talking about 62,000 trips a day through here, at $1.25 a trip. That's a revenue generator for the Turnpike Enterprise and for the state of Florida, obviously. So yes, we are looking for some assistance in getting this on the DOT's marketplace. The other thing that's unique about this interchange, that many of you heard me say before, is the cost is about $30 million. The authority, which is really outside of their normal operation procedures, has agreed to reimburse half of the cost of that interchange through toll revenues over the period. That would give you an indication of how much they want this interchange, because they don't do that. This would be, I think, only the second interchange in the entire state of Florida that they've agreed to do something like that. So it's clear that they want it. Everybody wants it. It alleviates, as Vice Mayor pointed out, it alleviates 50, it alleviates 27, all roads that are already overbooked and overcapacitated. This interchange provides relief to those and will give life to those roads for 20, 30 years to come.
Okay, since our session runs from March to May, are you asking for it in this budget year, which would run from July 11 to 12, or are you asking for the following year?
We are hoping for right now.
But how does that correspond with the public hearings?
We would be ready for that, and I think my voice is loud enough for people to hear, but that's always been a problem of mine. I don't think we're going to have a problem completing that by this time frame and be ready to move forward with construction plans at that point in time. I don't anticipate that being an issue. The other thing that's important, and Vice Mayor pointed this out, now, I think you've probably seen that public projects or public works projects are much cheaper to perform today than they probably will be 2 or 3 years from now, because the cost of steel, the cost of concrete, the cost of labor, the cost of engineers is considerably less now because the economy is at a slow pace. If we have to wait 3 or 4 years from now, we're probably looking at a much higher cost. While we anticipate a $30 million interchange, we think right now we could probably get this thing built for 20 to 25% less. That's what public works projects are coming in right now.
Okay, so to wrap up this issue, unless any other members have questions, how much are you asking for?
$30 million. I mean, to be quite frank, I mean that's because we'd like the cost of the interchange. Now, if it costs less than that, now understand that if you were to put up, or the state of Florida were to put up that $30 million, $15 million of that would come back to the state through revenues from the Turnpike enterprise itself.
Representative O'Toole, is this in your district?
I think it's actually a representative Precourt's district.
We live right on the line.
Well, how about if we
And the big chunk of this is a financing issue, not a funding issue.
Okay. Well, then how about if the rest of us follow your lead in the House, and Senator Hayes in the Senate will count on you all to follow the issue and advise us as to where it is and what needs to be done.
Can I wrap up?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's that.
I said we need to find out who the new DOT secretary is.
And the new district secretaries, probably. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I'd just like to wrap up by saying thank you, as Mrs. Hill pointed out, about the economic development. You know, this is a great example. I think it's all studies show, as Mr. Duncan pointed out, you know, it's a win-win situation really for all of South Lake County. And to try to get everybody on board now is time is of the essence. It's a significant regional project that will create jobs and dramatically reduce economic development in the region. And again, Mineola will host the Turnpike Interchange Stakeholders Meeting at Mineola City Hall tomorrow at 2 p.m. We already have 3 developers, with Mr. Duncan, he'll be there tomorrow, as well as other people that have a lot of knowledge in that industry. So I just want to wrap up by saying thank you for your time, and God bless.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay. Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't want to be perceived as throwing a wet blanket on this meeting, but I want to try to put into perspective the budgetary situation that we're facing on the appropriations process in Tallahassee. Our budget for this year is $66 billion. The Revenue Estimating Conference has pointed out to us that we're probably going to have $3.5 billion fewer next year to operate with than we have this year. In a $66 billion budget, $30 million is no great big deal. Now, to you and me, it's a real big deal out of our own pockets, of course. But still, folks, we are charged right now with the task of finding ways to reduce next year's budget $3.5 billion less than it is this year. So to think that we're going to just be throwing out money here, there, and yonder is really deceiving. It's going to be a very, very tight year. And there are going to be a lot of people that have their programs either reduced or eliminated that are going to be very disappointed. And it's nothing that we're going to enjoy doing necessarily, even though there is a great deal of waste still left in the budget. We're just having to get in there and dig it out. You know, some of these programs are going to go to the wayside. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues yesterday about amputation of programs. And most people cringe at the term amputation, thinking, oh my word, somebody lost a limb. And yet, if that limb was gangrenous, it may have saved that patient's life. And if that program is not really a function that should be a function of state government, it's probably going to be amputated this year. So that's the cold, hard reality. And I hope that if your particular interest does not get funded the way you want it to be funded, that you don't think that we have anything against you individually or personally at all, but it's just some cold, hard decisions that we're having to make and a rearrangement of priorities up there. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Hayes, very well stated, and thank you for kind of setting the stage, because we don't want to lead you to believe that we don't think that your issues are important. And as representatives of this county and the other counties we represent, we certainly want to do everything in our power to help economic development here. But the fact of the matter is, year after year for the past 3 years, we've been talking about the need to cut the budget drastically, but we've fortunately or unfortunately, depending on what your perspective is on the role of government, we've been spared from doing the deep cuts by all the federal stimulus money. Well, the reason we had federal stimulus money is because the federal government doesn't have to balance their budget. We in the state of Florida do have to balance ours, and last year was the last of 3 years that we received all those stimulus funds. So education, we now have a huge hole in education just to fill that which the stimulus funds have been filling. So it is going to be a tough year. We have a feeling people are going to be very unhappy when their programs get cut. So I think most of what our job is going to be doing is to minimize the damage rather than to have a lot that we can do proactively. I personally think transportation projects and infrastructure projects are some of the best things we can do for quality of life and economic development. So I'd like to see us try not to hurt transportation too badly, but even though we have almost $8 billion in the transportation budget, most of that is the second and third and fourth and fifth years of a 5-year work program, and few new projects will get rolled into that. So we'll do what we can do. We certainly appreciate you putting it on our radar screen, but Senator Hayes set the tone perfectly, and that is our job is to go in there and figure out how we're going to cut. They're saying $3.5 billion. We fear that it's maybe closer to $4 billion when all is said and done and the new revenue projections come in. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, next we have City of Mount Dora, Melissa DeMarco, Mayor, and members is behind tab 3 and 6. Welcome.
Thank you. That was a real cheerful way for me to start out. And the City of Mount Dora does understand that at the city, the county, the regional, the state level, we're facing unprecedented budget shortfalls, and we are aware of that. And as usual, as a municipal government, we would ask no new unfunded mandates roll down the hill onto our smaller heads. Additionally, we would seek some action or relief by the legislature on several issues. We are asking for clear legislation to limit and or regulate the proliferation of internet gaming and gambling cafes, at least clear professional guidelines and regulations for these so-called businesses. We are seeing in this economy they are popping up everywhere. We also ask for clear and definitive legislation to help us limit and regulate the proliferation of pain management clinics. We're in no way targeting the physicians who offer much-needed assistance to chronic pain sufferers and those that require pain management because of ongoing medical issues. We understand that's a reality for a lot of people, but the pain management clinics are a whole other category that we need your assistance with. Many of us have passed resolutions or moratoriums to limit their proliferation for the short term. We ask your help at the legislature for a long-term solution to this. We're also asking for legislation that allows small communities that responsibly, thoughtfully, and diligently work to provide water delivery systems to their taxpayers to be offered some relief from the onerous monetary charges related to applying for a consumptive use permit. City of Mount Dora acknowledges there is an inherent responsibility that goes along with delivering water that includes conservation practices, education to the public, making the most of what you have. But we are asking for relief from inconsistent interpretation of regulations, studies, and procedures relative to that process so that we can continue to offer safe, affordable drinking water to our residents in the same conscientious manner we've been doing that for many decades. It's also our request that for those of us who are in the business of water delivery and are actively using our local resources to develop an alternate water supply source, that we be given some authority over the distribution of that resource. Once we invest local taxpayer money in that, we'd like to have some say instead of having that resource fall completely under the dominion of the water authority. Allow us to apply that to our CUP and have some discretion over how we distribute that water. We're having issues with that at this time. We ask the legislature to forego imposing the potential financial hardship of a TABOR or similar impositions on our local government in the midst of this economic climate. Our city's been fiscally conservative in its taxation, its spending, and its delivery of services. We've seen significant drop in revenues and have appropriately curtailed expenses in response without raising taxes. We ask that you honor our home rule authority and experience and allow us to continue to be accountable to our residents for the quality and quantity of services and infrastructure that we provide by allowing us to respond to the community's needs at the local level. We would respectfully request that the legislature continue to allow opportunities for local government to impose public safety assessment fees when needed to provide short and or long-term services to our residents. Please allow us the opportunity to determine how to best provide first responder services to our residents and our neighborhoods and determine the best method by which to pay for those. We ask your assistance in expediting the review and approval or denial of permitting on waterfront. In Lake County, we cherish and want to preserve our beautiful and plentiful lakes. We're not asking for diminishment of oversight necessarily, but we would like to encourage ecotourism and some development near our waterfront to help our economies. So we're asking if you can help us find ways to expedite the permitting process. We're also asking for assistance with revision of legislation relative to Florida Statutes 175-85, such that we're not penalized by the state for amending our city's retirement programs for fire and police professionals. We'd like to take those steps right now. If we do make those, it can have some dire financial consequences for us relative to state funds. We would like the opportunity to appropriately look to the future and say that we may have non-sustainable provisions in some of our retirement programs, just as a lot of people at the state and other local levels do. We'd like to address those. We would also request ongoing partnership with state government to encourage economic development and the continuation of programs that assist us in offering incentives, financial or otherwise, to prospective businesses in Mount Dora and Lake County. In closing, I would like to acknowledge that I've got two of my fellow council members here, Mr. Denny Wood, Mr. Vasco Waters, have accompanied me. We would all, as a council, like to extend our thanks and appreciation to you who've chosen this very difficult job at this very difficult time in our history. We know it's tough. We want to work with you. We want to offer you the technical assistance that you need to address any of those issues you hear from us or other municipalities who may come forward with similar issues. Our public works staff, our police staff, and professionals stand willing to help and provide you any information you need in crafting legislation to help us with those issues we've asked about. The only other issue I have provided Senator Hayes with a letter. It's some model language asking that Mount Dora be permitted to have more frequent events in a defined area that allow bona fide not-for-profit entities to serve alcohol in public right-of-way. The language has been provided, similar to what our neighboring communities did last year. So if there are questions, I am here to answer those.
Senator Hayes, is that a potential local bill?
Yes, ma'am, it is a local bill. We need to vote on it as a delegation.
Are you prepared to explain that today? Actually,
Sure.
we would need to advertise that before a vote, which has not been done, correct? So if that's something that you're looking forward to moving on, then we can discuss it today, advertise it, and then we would probably take a vote when we're all up in Tallahassee after the proper amount of time has passed for citizens input.
You want me to explain the bill?
Do you want to do that now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you, and candidly, we talked about this last year as I was heading up I-75 one Sunday afternoon. Mel called and says, "Why aren't you doing it for us?" I said, "Coach, you didn't ask." Well, now she's asked, and here it is. Thank you. I think, nevertheless, what this does, it allows organizations that are bona fide 501c3, such as your local Kiwanis or Rotary, other types of organizations, to sell alcoholic beverages at these street festivals. We did it 2 years ago for the city of Leesburg. We did it last year for Tavares and Eustis, and Mount Dora would like to have that same opportunity now. So I move that we go ahead and adopt this as a local bill, properly advertise it, and have it receive any public input. I don't know I guess we would have to advertise we're going to have a delegation meeting at Tallahassee on a specific day and time.
Right.
And if anybody wants to have input at that time, then they can go ahead and provide that input there in Tallahassee.
Okay, and local bills originate in the House, so is there a House member who is well versed on this issue and who is considering being the sponsor of that local bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will work with Senator Hayes to provide the ability to move this bill forward. So I look forward to taking direction from him as far as what needs to be done with the bill drafting, and then we'll get it filed in the House. This is a local bill.
It's a Lake County District 6.
Exactly, so I'll be happy to work with you on that, Senator Hayes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and let me, just for your edification, I'll pass it on for 1 second, read to you from our Lake County Legislative Delegation Rules of Procedure. Local legislation, the delegation shall not accept for consideration local legislation later than 30 days prior to the opening of the next session by the legislature. So we have some time. We have to back up 30 days from March 8th would be the latest. No local legislation shall be considered by the delegation unless sponsored by a member of the delegation. Such sponsorship may be shown to be by request. Voting requirements on local bills shall be by a majority of members of the delegation that are present. However, a tie vote shall be considered a vote of disapproval. No local bill may be approved by the delegation until such bill has had a local public hearing. Local public hearing. So we would have to come back and to address that.
We could have that local hearing in the city of Mount Dora, and the date, time, certain, and go from there.
Okay, well, my office will stand ready for the two of you to let us know, but having discussed the bill today, it put it out there for the public, and then our biggest consideration is going to be to make sure we have the 30 days prior to the legislative. Okay, thank you. Senator, Representative Precourt.
And this is on a separate subject. The issue brought up about the Tabor imposition, given the behavior of Mount Dora as a good actor that you indicated here, I don't think you would be impacted by the legislation that's being considered right now, number one. And then secondly, given that this, I believe, is maybe the number one priority of the Senate President, Smart Cap, I think it's going to go forward. So I'd encourage you to engage as opposed to try and encourage us not to move this forward. It has a very good likelihood of something occurring with this. Could you give me some feedback on if something like this does move forward, what aspects of it would you need flexibility in so that good actors like Mount Dora won't be adversely affected?
Yes, thank you. I guess my primary concern is because we have been good actors, we have kept our millage rate very low. It is currently very low. We lost 7 or 8% of our revenue last year, or year before last. We went down 9% on our ad valorem collections this year. We kept our tax rate the same. So for those people that raised them and kept raising them and didn't pay any attention to the distress that their taxpayers were in, they're now very high. So if you freeze them, they're not going to feel any pain. You freeze my rates when I have tried to keep them low at this time. That's one of the concerns that we definitely have as a municipality. Please don't penalize us for having tried to do the right thing, hold off on raising taxes, hold off on doing infrastructure improvements until perhaps there is an improvement in the economy, so that we can then, when our taxpayers are better to react, maybe raise taxes at a later date. That's one of the concerns, is that having done the right thing and having kept the taxes low and watching neighboring communities now be up to 2 millage points higher than we currently set, how do we make up for that if we're frozen?
Right, and those are exactly the, maybe if you turn yours off.
You just keep it.
Okay, and that's exactly the kind of thing, feedback that we want. There are going to be some mechanisms in there to allow with some supermajority votes and things like that for local municipalities that have undue hardships to adjust as necessary. But that would keep, as you mentioned, some of those other communities that took advantage of their taxpayers from being able to perpetuate that. So that's what we're trying to get after, is to control the bad actors and have enough flexibility for the good actors to do the right thing.
And I guess also one of the things that concerns me, there are hundreds of small cities in the state of Florida that are probably in exactly the same position Mount Dora's in. We've tried to do the right thing. We are so reach out and touchable to our residents. We dine with them at restaurants. We stand next to them in the grocery store. We're not removed. We're not legislating in another city, in another county. We're right there. We feel strongly, our taper is, we have an election every year. And we feel strongly about that, and we've tried very hard to act responsibly. We will be happy to provide you input amongst those hundreds of cities. Some of them are 10 years old, and some of them, like Mount Dora, will be celebrating centennials. We know the needs of our infrastructure. We know the needs of the public safety. We know the demographics of our individual cities. We know that some of them need ALS, and some of them don't. And we're just asking, please don't apply a one-size-fits-all solution to the hundreds of cities who are struggling hard to maintain their sense of place. Choosing a place to live is probably the second most important decision you get to make in your life. You get to choose your spouse, and you may get to choose where you live. And a lot of the rest of it falls on your head. And we work really hard to make each of our communities in Florida special places to live and special places to be. And we're just asking, work with us. We understand these are hard times. We want to work with you. I want people in Florida. I want jobs in Florida. I want satisfied voters in Florida. My political career depends on it, just as yours would. But please work with us rather than imposing a one solution from Tallahassee on hundreds of small cities that are struggling to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, members, if you'll now turn to tab 4, we'll take up Lake County School Board, Dr. Susan Moxley. Welcome, Dr. Moxley.
Thank you. Good afternoon, senators and representatives. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak with you this afternoon. I do want to recognize and acknowledge that we have several school board members here in the audience. If they would please stand so we can have them identified and recognized. I know we have Dr. Todd Howard, we have Jim Miller, and we have Roseanne Brandenburg, and Roseanne is our vice chair this year, so thank you very much. I know your passion and commitment to public education, particularly here in Lake County, and that has come from our years of working with each and every one of you, and I want to thank you so much for your support of public education. We know in Lake County that a high-quality education system provides a return on the state's investment, as well as providing well-prepared graduates to work in Florida's business and industry and provide that qualified workforce needed to drive our state's economic engine. Lake County Schools has provided a return on the tax investment in public education because we have made significant gains in student achievement, as evidenced by 98% of our schools have earned a grade of C or higher. In fact, 82% of our schools have a grade of A or B. I'm pleased also to report that all our high schools in Lake County have a grade of C or higher. So they are producing students that are achieving at high academic levels. Our graduation rate continues to increase. It increased to 80.82%, which was a 3.82% increase over last year. So we're very proud that we're continuing to move upward and onward in that area. I want to reaffirm for you our commitment to working with all our students reaching high levels of student achievement and meeting those accountability measures in a very efficient, effective manner. Our district and our school board has been very fiscally conservative in the fact that we have made significant cuts to live within our own means in Lake County schools. We understand the economic environment and condition that our state is facing, and we want to use the best use of our tax dollars to get the greatest bang for the buck, if you say. We know that we're on the verge of looking at redesign and renewal in public education, and we want to be part of that in the state of Florida. The legislation that you'll be facing with public education is complex, and it affects more than just Lake County schools, all 67 districts. I want to share just a few highlights. I know that we have put some materials in your packet that you'll be able to read at a later time, but we are excited, and we know that the upcoming years in public education in Florida are going to be interesting, challenging, innovative, and painful, especially in the economic times that we're in. But we embrace and want to be partners with you as we design public education in Florida. Some points that we would like you to consider as you are building legislation and you are considering legislation is with, first of all, class size. We understand the constitutional amendment, and in fact, in Lake County schools, we did meet class size with that requirement. We know that that is a moving target, and it did come at an expense to Lake County's budget. We ask that you consider looking at flexibility within the class size constitutional requirements that are within your consideration and your authority. With regards to teacher quality, we support teacher quality reform. We ask that you consider systems that have time to have collaborative research and development so that it can be very collaborative in the design and that all groups can be part of that initiative and it can be done right in the very beginning. We ask that any policy changes should be consistent with constitutional requirements with regards to public education. We know that there needs to be a commitment, and we ask that you embrace a long-term funding stability for teacher performance pay and teacher evaluation systems that support in addition to the current student funding. With regards to student assessment and the evaluation system, timely data is critical for the success and implementation of student and teacher assessment and evaluation systems. We must ensure reliable testing measures by restoring funding necessary to support FCAT and norm reference tests that's commonly known as the NRT. The Lake County School District is part of the Central Florida School Boards Coalition Association, which is comprised of 13 Central Florida school districts. We are working very collaboratively because we know that there cannot be a duplication of efforts and services, especially when it comes to end-of-course exams that need to be developed. We know that that needs to occur in the areas of coursework that is not tested and measured by the FCAT. Alone in Lake County, we would have over 400 end-of-course exams that would need to be developed in courses that are not measured on the FCAT. Because of the significance, we know that they need to be reliable, they need to be verified and validated, that is extremely important, and that comes at a cost and does not need to be replicated 67 times. And so we ask that you consider that as you're moving forward. I know that funding is tight, and the request that we have is that you do consider funding the Take Stock in Children program. Impact on Lake County, we had 454 Lake and Sumter County at-risk students that were given hope, a mentor, and received a college education, and an additional 26 students will receive that this spring. And that's thanks to your support in funding that program. Also, the Educational Foundation School District matching grants. Since the program started in 2002, state tax dollars matched by local business community has generated approximately $683,000, which impact over 100,000 low-performing students in 998 classrooms. We ask only $1 per student with that. It is an investment in education and economic development to ensure stability and equity in the Florida Education Finance Program. We come with a suggestion. We want to be part of the solution, but one idea is to establish a blue ribbon commission to study K-12 education funding in Florida. We know we need to think differently, and we know that there are limited funds and you may need to look at it differently, and that may be one way to look at that. We need to ask you to consider to restore the full operational District 2 mill capital outlay levy. In Lake County, that was critical when the mandatory was moved over to operational. For districts that were in high growth and a lot of facilities being built, that became a very challenge for us. So we do ask for flexibility in that. Support state funding for education that considers the potential loss of federal stimulus dollars. Support a collaborative approach for all educational reform efforts, and support local control for operations and policy decisions at the local level as greatly as possible. We're here to partner with you. I want to thank each and every one of you for the job that you have before you, and again, we want to partner with you and be part of the exciting times that we have in public education. Thank you so much.
Representative O'Toole has a question.
Certainly.
Earlier this summer, we had a gathering of Teacher of the Year and some board certified, and the offer was extended to the audience to get in contact with Dr. Smith and participate. How has that worked out, and how many have participated?
I'm not able to give you an exact number of people that have participated. I have heard from several teachers that have communicated with that. We have been working on several different types of committees, and we're trying, again, like I said, across districts to try and collaborate to do a very team approach to consolidate efforts with that. And in fact, tomorrow or Friday, I will be at a meeting with the commissioner where districts are coming together to have this type of dialogue. So that is continuing, and we want to embrace and support that and encourage that to continue during this time.
Okay. And then secondly, on the end of course assessments, there was an offer also during the summer to participate with Dr. Smith. Did anyone participate from Lake County on writing end of course assessments that could be used by others?
We have been working on that initiative in the fact that through the Central Florida School Boards Coalition, we have actually, and our Curriculum Association, we have actually put different committees together and different teams, and each district is trying to work on certain segments of it and providing staff to work on that. So all the districts are coming together to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Senator Hayes has a question. And by the way, we have found a ring on the floor. If any woman, I think, or if it's a man's ring, I'm not passing judgment, wants to identify, if you're missing a ring and want to identify it, it's at the table to the side here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Moxley, thank you for doing a great job, and you've got hundreds of employees and teachers all across your system that are doing a great job for our kids, and I appreciate it. My question, I almost think it's ridiculous, but I just want to make sure. In seeing news reports of the school system in New York City that has what they call a rubber room for teachers that are under disciplinary action, where those teachers are put in this room, have absolutely no contact with students, but are drawing their full salary for months and years on end. Do you have anything that in any way resembles such a program here in Lake County? Or do you know of anything that resembles that anywhere else in the state?
I'm not sure of exactly the criteria you're referring to in the New York situation of the rubber room concept, but when we have situations where, and I'm assuming you're saying a teacher is not performing up to standard.
Well, that, or they're misbehaving in some way.
We have protocols and procedures on how we address that in a timely manner. In fact, we understand the statute that is in place of evaluation and probationary status and the timelines involved in that, and we utilize that to the fullest extent that the statute allows us to do that, so that we have teachers that are producing in our classrooms and teachers that are not producing. There are steps in place to not have them in the classrooms.
All right, in the situation of a disciplinary action that needs to be brought against a teacher, do you have any programs where there are teachers that are out of the classroom for disciplinary reasons but are still being paid their full salary?
When we have a disciplinary situation while we are doing due process, we have two options. One, we can reassign them to exactly what you're talking about, or that we have a board policy that affords me the opportunity with just cause and the due process procedures that I can do a recommended unpaid suspension status for any employee for board consideration, pending their due process rights being given to that employee.
I'm in favor of due process in a timely manner, but I'd appreciate if sometime in the next 3 or 4 weeks you could get to me with more details on that particular program. Because if it's being abused here like it is up there, I'm going to do everything I can to put a stop to it.
Yes, we do have that board policy that allows me to make that recommendation for board consideration for an unpaid suspension status for that time period of investigation and conclusion of the due process rights. Representative?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Senator Hayes, typically if they're on paid status, they go to the copy center and they're working there doing something for that long until the due process runs and we have our hearing. It's usually not that long, and we have special board meetings if necessary to accommodate that. So I haven't seen the situation. I did see the film clip on the rubber room in New York City, and that was just an abomination. They would have people on public salaries sitting around for literally months at a time and doing nothing at all. Madam Chair, thank you again. So I asked Superintendent Moxley, with respect to your reference to local control and more flexibility and so forth, I would be interested in sponsoring repealer bills that would lift some of these unfunded mandates and give you more flexibility, and I intend to work on that. So we'll look forward to perhaps getting some specific suggestions in that regard, especially in the finance area. If there's a way to create, since we're obviously going to be hard-pressed to even keep funding where it is now, let alone increase it, if we can provide flexibility somehow where you can manage your finances better because you have less of it, that would be, I think, a proper direction. So we'll look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you, and I appreciate your consideration for the flexibility, because I know in times like this, $1 is $1, and it can only be spent one time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. And if I could just make a quick comment, and it follows what Representative Metz was saying, and I can see that Representative Metz's name was on the school board, so you must have just finished up a term on the school board. So we have another education expert on the board. I just wanted to make the comment that for the 14 years I've been in the state legislature, when I first went in, I believed then, and I believe even stronger now, that the 67 school districts that have locally elected school boards ought to have more autonomy to run their schools, and that the voters in the districts can vote those people out if they don't like what's going on. And in the 14 years that I've been in the legislature, even under Republican leadership the entire time, we've moved in the opposite direction and seem to be putting more power in the hands of bureaucrats in Tallahassee. So I'm thrilled that Representative Metz is going to sponsor some legislation. I'm not optimistic that you'll get much further than we have in the past, but I'm going to wish you luck and remain cautiously optimistic. But I truly believe that if we want to hold you accountable, we have to untie your hands and allow you to do the innovative things that work in Lake County that may not work in Miami-Dade County, and allow the 67 school districts all to do what's best for the students that they serve. So I hope we can move towards that.
I'm a new school board member. I got this about a week or two before I took office.
It's pretty thick, isn't
It's
it?
818 pages of fine print.
Of Florida school laws. And
Our lawmakers have been working real hard and doing a real good job. But
Yeah.
just take it easy to be nice.
And I would say this, what is frustrating to me is we change the laws every year. So just when you're getting used to implementing what we passed the year before, in comes a whole new, and if we give you some time to actually get accustomed to the laws that we passed. But everybody has an opinion on education, and we hear about education. In fact, 14 years ago, education was the largest part of our state budget. Now healthcare has surpassed by quite a bit our education budget, and education has shrunk while as a percentage of the total budget as healthcare has increased. So to the extent that some of us are fighting for local control, hopefully more of us will do that as we move forward. And with that, let's call up Lake County Water Authority, Carolyn, I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name probably, Mamoni, and members go to tab 5 in your books. Also, members, we have to vacate this room at 5, so we're going to try and get through this agenda. Anything we don't get through, we'll move on to the later portion, but if we can, let's try and move pretty quickly through the rest of the agenda. You're recognized.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you and make a brief report of the Water Authority's progress in the last year. Lake County Water Authority Board of Trustees continues to place an emphasis on implementing construction projects through partnerships with state agencies and local governments that will make physical improvements to degraded water quality of area lakes, particularly the Harris Channel Lakes. 76% of our fiscal year 2010-2011 budget consists of these 3 key water resource projects. The NERF, which is the Nutrient Reduction Facility, which is $1.9 million. The Beauclair Restoration Project, which is $9.7 million. And the Stormwater Retrofit Projects, which consists of $2.5 million. The Nutrient Reduction Facility became operational in March of '09 and is currently the world's largest alum-based surface water restoration facility. As of November 23rd of 2010, it has treated over 18 billion gallons of water, which is the equivalent of 7.5 times the volume of Lake Beauclair. It is currently achieving the TMDL for Lake Beauclair, which we're proud of. The Beauclair Restoration Project is, the Water Authority is working to remove a sediment delta from the western end of Lake Beauclair, which is 260 acres that was created as a result of over 50 years of predominantly organic discharges from Lake Apopka via the Apopka-Beauclair Canal. During the average and low water levels, the delta creates a severe navigational hazard that has trapped vessels and prevents navigation to Lake Apopka and adjacent canals south of Lake Beauclair. This project will also prevent high wind events and boat traffic from remobilizing nutrients back into the water due to resuspension. To eliminate the hazard, Lake County Water Authority is working in cooperation with several local state agencies to do a restoration project that will eliminate the hazard by dredging the organic sediments and improving aquatic habitat. We currently have the necessary permits in hand, and we intend to advertise the bid for the project at the board's February meeting. The board is preparing a bid that allows for a conventional disposal area as well as any alternative disposal options that are financially competitive. We're not here asking for any money, but we are asking for legislative action from someone. We do not have a sponsor for this right now, so we would like for somebody to sponsor it if possible. The Lake County Water Authority, the Lake County Board of County Commissioners, and other state and federal agencies have significant holdings of land in Lake County for water resource and other environmental protection purposes. Over the past few years, there's been a significant increase in looters seeking artifacts on these reserves. As best as Water Authority staff can determine, there are no state laws or local ordinances to protect these reserves from archaeological looting. Without effective laws or ordinances, looters will continue to destroy these valuable environmental and cultural resources. The Lake County Water Authority Board of Trustees is requesting that the delegation work to craft a law that would provide the law enforcement officials the authority they need to arrest and prosecute unpermitted excavations on all publicly owned property. Our legal counsel has suggested changes to the wording of the Florida Statute 267.13 that would fill this need. We would provide copies of those suggestions to the staff for your review and consideration. Thank you.
Do you have that language with you?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and are any of the delegation members aware of this issue? Yes. Representative Metz.
One of your fellow board members did bring it to my attention just before I went on my recent trip, and so I haven't really had a chance to do any further research on it, but I'd be interested to know what the state attorney has to say about it. Have there been any failed prosecutions because the statutes are deemed inadequate now? That's one of the questions that I would have, and I'd like to do further research on it to see what might be needed there.
Whenever we've talked to law enforcement, there's been very little they've been able to do because they can't find anything in the statute that covers these lands. So they don't want to push it any further.
Okay.
Representative Metz, you're an attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you a question. Keep the microphone. They're requesting that we craft a law that would provide law enforcement officials the authority they need to arrest and prosecute unpermitted excavations on all publicly owned property. If somebody were digging on public property, wouldn't the local law enforcement have the authority already implicitly to?
That's why I had asked the question of were there any failures in prosecution because of flaws in current law that need to be corrected, as opposed to just we're starting with a clean sheet of paper because there's no law. In other words, the proposal almost reads as though it's legal now to go out and excavate on public lands. And I can't believe that that's the case, just like your question suggests, Madam Chair. So I wanted to find out, well, if the law, I presume the law doesn't allow that to happen now, but that somehow local law enforcement isn't able to use the law that now exists to effectuate proper arrests and or successful prosecutions.
Well, and it goes to the question of what they're talking about. Yeah. Is this kids picking up Indian arrowheads that were just rained, or is this something out there with back?
No, they're digging very large holes and craters in the sides of our reserves on the sides of the lakes, which is washing out a lot of the vegetation and doing damage to the reserves. The statute covers state land, but it doesn't cover local public land that the Water Authority or the county would own. But it does cover state land.
Representative Metz, can we leave it as a delegation up to you to explore this issue further?
Yes, I'm fast running out of bill slots though, so I have to.
Well, it doesn't have to be that you sponsor the bill, but you look into whether there's a legitimate issue that needs to be addressed. And quite frankly, this seems to me that if it is something that needs to be addressed, it could be done in the form of an amendment to somebody else's bill. It doesn't seem like it would rise to the level where it needs a bill of its own.
Okay, I'll be happy to take the lead, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. And thank you very much, Carol. Moving on, members, we're going to go to Skip. And Skip did not make our book, so you should have a loose binder in front of you. And Skip, your last name is pronounced Goner?
Gerner.
Gerner, okay, Skip Gerner, from Harris Chain of Lakes. You're recognized.
Madam Chairman, members of the delegation, my name is Skip Gerner. I'm the chairman of the Harris Chain Lakes Restoration Council. I am pleased to submit to you the 2010 annual report to the legislature from the Harris Chain Lakes Restoration Council. The council was established in 2001 in accordance with Chapter 373.467 of the Florida statutes and is tasked with A, reviewing and auditing all data specifically related to lake restoration techniques and sport fish population recovery strategies. B, evaluating whether additional studies are needed. And C, exploring all possible sources of funding to conduct restoration activities. Well, of course, in our report as they go on, you know, it does ask for money. It tells you what it costs in some of the projects that we're recommending. The legislature also established the Harris Chain Lakes Restoration Program under Chapter 373.468 Florida statutes, which directs the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission and the St. Johns River Water Management District in conjunction with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, pertinent local governments, and the council to review existing restoration proposals to determine which are the most environmentally sound and economically feasible methods of improving the fish and wildlife habitat and natural system of the Harris Chain Lakes. In this, the 10th year you were the only one in the legislature at the time of our creation, Senator.
I know I'm old.
In the 10th year of this council's activities, we have continued our aggressive search for effective restoration programs and have provided a recommended plan of action for your consideration. The pollution in the Harris Chain of Lakes water and sediments continues to adversely affect water quality conditions and hinders ecological restoration. There's no easy solutions. The complex and expensive nature of many of the proposed lake and watershed restoration techniques makes defining the best course of action all the more difficult. Over the past 9 years, the council has brought in a new way of thinking to the process of lake restoration. The council is free to obtain input from technical experts and the public to draw our own conclusions about proposed or ongoing restoration programs, practices, and projects, and to make our recommendations to the legislature about where funding should be directed and which efforts should be emphasized. Over the past 10 years, the council has provided a critical, objective review of proposed and ongoing state and locally supported restoration programs, practices, and projects. The council is proud to report that through coordinated inter-agency efforts, measurable improvements in water quality and ecological conditions in the Harris Chain of Lakes are being observed and documented. If you remember, years ago, Senator, we had a council that was formed. It was the Lake Griffin Task Force. And Lake Griffin was then considered one of the most polluted lakes in the state of Florida. Today, Lake Griffin, I'm proud to announce to you that Lake Griffin is one of the cleanest lakes in the Harris Chain. And it's our ranking a few years ago, BASS refused to come back to Lake County. They said they'd never come back. They had the worst catch rate that they'd ever had. That was 1992, almost 20 years ago. In 1987, or 2007, now you see my age, in 2007, we were ranked as in the top 10 bass fishing destinations in the world. So the improvement has been dramatic since the creation of this council. We've made a lot of inroads and a lot of, as a matter of fact, there was some discussion about how much money we were spending on bass stocking. Economists state that every dollar that we invested in stocking bass in the Harris Chain returned $2 to $7 in the economy. So it's been very successful. We have been a very successful program. We're especially grateful to the legislature for establishing the council and providing continuing funding support and your response to our annual recommendations. We encourage you and your staff to read this report, and we stand ready to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Skip. And does some of the restocking of the lakes take place from FWC's Bass Conservation Center in Sumter County?
As a matter of fact, we went through the new facility. As a matter of fact, there was some done just this past year on Lake Griffin. But most of the bass in stock, we acquired from the airport, the Orlando airport ponds. We electroshocked them and brought them to Stockton. And some of those bass were 15 pounds.
Wow.
So they were huge. And of course,
I'll bypass the part where you electroshock them.
Well, that only stuns them so you can capture them. And I remember seeing your picture in waders, holding up some.
Yes, I was very proud. The last thing I did when I was chairman of the General Government Appropriations Committee back in the House was acquire the funding for the Bass Conservation Center because a lot of our lakes around the state of Florida count on FWC for restocking. Skip, did you have an issue that you needed to discuss with us in terms
Absolutely.
of? Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead very quickly, please.
Okay, yes. There are, unfortunately, one of the members of our council passed away last year, and he was the engineer. We need to replace his position. And we have 2 applications. We advertised them. We have 2 applicants there, and we'd like you to to quickly look over, I know that Senator Hayes has done so, but I'd like you to look over them, and if you could vote on replacing, you only have 2 applicants, but if you could vote on replacement, it would be a great help if we need that in here.
Members, it's up to us, actually, as a delegation, to pick between these 2 applicants, and I'd like some guidance from you. Is that something that you're comfortable doing now? Is it something you'd like to take the hour break to look over and possibly vote at the beginning of the next part of the meeting? Yeah? Yeah, okay, then that's what we'll do. Thank you for bringing us the resumes. If we knew sooner, we'd have gotten them to you sooner so you could look them over, but if at the time of the next meeting you don't feel comfortable, then we'll address it then. But if you think that we can reach some conclusion by taking an hour, looking at them over the hour break, we'll try and do that. Senator Hayes? Sure.
On page 2, Mr. Perry, you might be the one to answer this. I'm not sure. Skip, if you know the answer, great. Page 2 here of the report, you're asking for $1.7 million essentially to improve and continue operation of the NERF facility. Is that something that you're expecting? If you don't get that, are you going to have to shut the thing down? What's the story there?
No, that's a portion of the annual operating cost of the facility, and any assistance we have, we can get from the state to operate that to meet the TMDLs, then we can take existing funds and put on another project.
But if we don't get the 1.7, you'll continue operating. Thank you.
Okay, without any further questions, thank you so much, Skip, and you can stick around or come back for the next. Okay, great, thank you. Next, members, if we'll go to tab 6, we'll take up Lake Sumter Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, TJ Fish, Executive Director. Welcome, TJ. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Delegate, thank you for the time. Again, TJ Fish with the Lake Sumter MPO. We represent Lake and Sumter counties, all 19 municipalities. Also sitting on the board of the MPO, both school districts, which I think is very innovative that we integrate our planning efforts with the school districts so well, as well as the Florida Central Railroad, which I want to talk about in just a moment. Also here today, you saw Chairman Hill, who is also the chair of the MPO this year. Also here today, he may have stepped out for a moment, Commissioner Parks, new commissioner for Lake County, James Gerhardt from Groveland, serves on my board, and I saw Sue Hooper from Eustis back there, so there's a few of the elected officials that I actually work for. What's important to know, I think, for the delegation this year is that the MPO has a real singular mission in 2011. The MPO wants JOBs. We want to do things to create jobs, and having an agency that is in charge of transportation infrastructure puts us in a very fortuitous position to help create jobs. So I want to talk about a couple of the things that we're wanting to do that we need your help on. First and foremost, and it's in the package, we need your help to protect our money. We have $13.8 million sitting in the DOT budget right now, and DOT is asking us, where's your commitments? And we are saying we're working on it. We have votes coming up in February, both in Lake County and Orange County, to vote to substantiate the required local match for those strategic intermodal system funds that will go to the Florida Central Railroad to improve that rail line. It's already a good railroad from Orlando halfway to Eustis. We need to do the rest of the project. And what we will get out of that, putting just a little bit of local money in with that state money, we have 2 designated land areas for employment centers. Tavares and Eustis have the land plan to create jobs based around rail, and the reason we know it's going to work, because the state just purchased from CSX 61 miles of track that really is going to be primarily off-limits industrial development. The new industrial development by rail is going to be on our railroad to Lake County. Now we need your help to make sure that, for whatever reason, if it's a DOT budget decision, we need you to protect us. If it's yet another sweep with the Transportation Trust Fund, we need you to protect us. This is the most singular, obvious creator of jobs that we've got going of any transportation project. Let me jump into a couple others real quick. The Minola interchange. Senator Dockery, I can be real specific about that. What we're going to do is we're going to apply for TRIP funding. There's been 3 years go by that there's been no money in the TRIP program because there's been no documentary stamps coming in. There's no revenues. Now DOT's programming TRIP money again. We have a couple of projects programmed that were the priority right ahead of this interchange. DOT's already done us the kind service of putting our top priorities in the tentative work program. Next up, this interchange. This is the next priority. So sometime in the 5-year program, any year would be good. Then Mineola, the developer, Lake County, the MPO, we have something to focus on in terms of when those dollars become available. But what we'll apply for is we'll take whatever that developer has put up in terms of their land, the design, the PD&E study, the interchange justification report, any of the expenditures we'll offer as a private local match. And we'll leverage whatever state funds that the state deems to be worthy of the project. So that's our game plan, is to put in the application, use the private money that's being put in as the 50% leverage. So there will be an application we are putting as our top trip priority. But again, we're thankful that what already was number one, DOT's actually programmed that number one priority for us. Another project, the actual number one project of all, of the whole 2-county area, is the interchange right on the street here, 27 and 50. And I don't think that we need you to do anything except be aware that's our top priority. Right away is almost secure, it's shovel ready. DOT's trying to program construction into the tentative work program. We just need it to stay in the work program. That's the number one priority. That really finishes South Lake. 50's under construction, 27's under construction. The missing linchpin is that interchange. Another project that we expect to see job creation in. And I want to take just a moment and look at each of you, because of knowing your districts. Representative Precourt, we've done a good job together. You've done a lot on 50. I know you're working over in Orange County as well, but your efforts are obviously paying off because the road's under construction. We appreciate that. Representative O'Toole, we have to get 441 done to the villages. We need to get done from Leesburg, and DOT's working with us, but that and 301 are the two projects in your district that we need the most help on. Representative VanZant, don't have a lot, but I will tell you this, we work well with Marion, we work well with Volusia, and we have a great national and state scenic byway there in that forest. And that's going to help bring more people and bring more economic development, people that want to enjoy the forest. Representative Metz, I'm definitely going to need your help. We have a bridge, 60 years old, 3,300 feet long, that connects Tavares to Howie. And we're doing the study now to figure out what we're going to do with that bridge. But that's one that's going to be one of those that 10 years from now, we're still going to be wondering when we get that bridge built. But we got to really work hard now. Senator Hayes, same thing. We got to do that bridge and figure out what we're going to do and get to it, because that's going to be one of the most expensive projects ever in Lake County. But it's a bridge that needs to be replaced. And Senator Dockery, rail. You have been a big proponent of high-speed rail. Now we're seeing things happen. We'll see what Governor Scott has to say. We're really looking forward to those jobs connected to rail. And if there's anything at all that I can do in Four Corners, we're really anxious to make Polk, Knoxville, and Orange, and of course Lake. You got to figure out not just roads, but transit in the area. And there's always that issue of getting the governments to work together. So I've given you the not in the booklet part of my spiel. And real quickly on what's in the booklet, I've already talked to a few of you over in Sumter County 3 weeks ago. I don't think this is going to be the session where the legislature expands taxation authority, as I had mentioned over in Sumter County. I know Senator Hayes and Senator Dockery and Representative O'Toole heard that. The idea is, since the 80s, and it's in the book, you've had a transportation surtax that a county could make available as a referendum item to the voters. And if the voters choose to pass up to 1 cent, it all goes to transportation. And it's one of those missing ingredients. Lake County, Sumter County will never get there on impact fees alone. Although it's a good idea, that tax, again, it's not adopting a tax, it's making it available to go to the voters. It was originally available to 7 charter counties, expanded to 24 last year. That was increased to 31 counties that are either charter or regional transportation authority counties. There are only 12 counties left that are actually urban. And so 31 now, we want to increase that by 12 more counties. Any county with an MPO, which means you're urban and you have transportation issues, you could take that to the voters. Now, I honestly think it's a wonderful idea, but as far as the legislature, this may be one of those years we bring it up and everybody hears it and they say not the right time and we'll come back again next year. But right now, what I'm having trouble with is on the House side. So your Florida Transportation Commission is going to tell you you have to change your policy on funding transportation. You already know that because you served on the Transportation Committee on the Senate side. And I know Steve knows that as well because of his involvement in transportation. We have a funding problem. You can't expect to pay for everything out of gas tax when you're consuming less gas. So policy is going to change in Florida, it's just a matter of when. But at the local level, Lake and Sumter both are 2 urban counties that do not have that option to be able to ask the voters what they want to do. So please keep that in mind, and then I'll finish with, please, please, please protect the Transportation Trust Fund. If for every dollar out of that program turns into $5 of profit investment, that's the one thing that the Florida legislature should not do this year. Put the money into infrastructure and watch the jobs come. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you, TJ. We appreciate it. And you asked what you can do on rail. I think the biggest problem we have right now is a misperception of the facts behind high-speed rail and what little cost, if any, it will have on the taxpayers of the state of Florida. So if you can help us educate, and we're happy to share any information we have. I certainly don't want to support any system that requires a public subsidy on operation and maintenance. And we need, I agree with Governor Scott that we need to show the feasibility before we go forward and do it in a very open way so that the public can understand that. So we're happy to share that information with you. Next, Dr. Dan Holzenbeck, University of Central Florida, to be followed by Dr. Charles Mojok from Lake Sumter Community College. Dr. Holzenbeck, welcome.
Thank you very much, Senator and Chairman and members. I apologize to you since I see so many of you at so many different delegations that unless Senator Hayes wants to talk about Gator or Knights football, I'll be brief and to the point. You know, sometimes I sit back there when I do so many of these and I get a little self-conscious when I do have to come back to you, and then I'm reminded that it should prove to you the point that UCF is definitely all permeating and omnipresent in the Central Florida area. You can't go anywhere within an 11-county radius, which is our original designated area, without seeing some impact of your Metropolitan Research University, and that's UCF. 4 very quick points. Number 1, you are here on a great example of partnership in higher education. And that is what we do with Dr. Mojok and our partners at Lake Sumter Community College. You could not find a better activity, a better operation, and I know that President Mojok is going to reference that in just a moment. I'm not here today to ask you for anything. I'm going to give you 3 solutions. President Hitt and President Manchin of the University of Florida were asked by Governor-elect Scott at the time to serve on his economic transition committees. And that the committee that they were on looked at a series of activities that the universities were doing that could create jobs in the future. 3 of those items I'll touch on very quickly are something that are very much within the core of UCF's activities. 1, incubators. UCF has one of the largest networks of university-created incubators in the country. As a matter of fact, it was designated a few years ago as the outstanding university incubator system in the country. We have about 90 clients, and they have generated a little over 1,600 jobs. In 2009, that was $70 million in salaries and about a $200 million impact from university-generated incubators. Most of those companies which have started, of that, about 85% are still in business, and over 80% are still located in the Central Florida area. Second point, the Florida High-Tech Charter, and one of its most important programs, it's an industry matching grant program. The 3 universities, USF, University of Florida, and UCF, have invested monies, which came from our state appropriation, to create a matching grant program where our professors team with industry to solve an industry problem. We've invested in the years that that program's been alive over $50 million. Industry has matched that with cash by almost 4 to 1. It's created 3,200 jobs, had an economic impact of $1.3 billion, and created in local tax returns alone over $36 million. And the last one is the concept of a university-based technology cluster. And you know the one that I'm going to talk about. It's become the national, maybe even the international model, and that is the medical city at Lake Nona. Many of you went out on a limb with us to create a new medical school at UCF. And we told you it was not necessarily to generate more doctors. But one of the things that we told you that it would do, and we firmly believed it, was the economic impact for our area. It's doing that. We told you it would create an economic impact by 2017 of $7.6 billion a year. We already have 80% of the mechanisms that we speculated would create that are now coming out of the ground. the Veterans Hospital, the Nemours Hospital, the University of Florida Research Facility, the Sanford Burnham Institute, and the UCF College of Medicine. We could not have done that without your investment and your faith in something that is going to create jobs. So I will close by saying thank you so very much. I think I'll see some of you again in Marion County, and I'll try to find some new jokes, and if Doc is not there, I won't have to worry about football.
That's right. Well, I was just waiting for you to thank the University of Florida for the Auburn Heisman Trophy winning quarterback this year. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. There might be some folks in the audience who would object if we got into that. Thank you very much.
And congratulations on your bowl game. That was very exciting.
Thank you very much. I will close by saying that the University of Central Florida is the only institution in the state of Florida with basketball and football rated in the top 20. How about that?
And thank you for what you do for economic development in the state of Florida. I think that we should rely on our wonderful research universities more to create jobs, and to the extent that you have any innovative ideas where we can help you on the legislative level, count me in.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. And now we have Dr. Charles Mojok, Lake Sumter Community College.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, and to some of you, welcome again. The three that represent Sumter, you've seen this show before, but I'll try to highlight it for the others that were not with us there. I want to wish you a Happy New Year, and certainly a great welcome to you to be with us here today. We do have one of our trustees in the audience, Mr. Dick Bowersox. Dick, please stand, be recognized. I don't know. And Margot Odom is trying to hide in the back of the room, but she is there and joined us. And thank you for being here. Very fitting that we're here, and this is a testimony to your leadership, the legislature and the matching fund program that made this possible. We had some of our partners here earlier, Lake County, which contributed the bulk of the funds and is operating their branch of a county library right across the way here from us, in the space we share in this community room. We have classrooms here, the bookstore and food service, all made possible by this shared facility. And then the second floor is primarily devoted to our college partnership. UCF has their staff there, as well as our staff, primarily on the second floor, handling the research, the reference desks. But there is a lot of great interaction and sharing between even the county library and the college and university library. The synergy is really something, bringing a lot of good things to this community, and as you can see from the parking lot, very heavily utilized at all times by people young and old. So it really makes this a community center, and that's the kind of partnership campus that we envision. We are very pleased to have UCF here with us on this campus, and not just on this campus, but really as a partner in a unique way. Some of the slides that I'm going to show you, and we talk about coming issues and needs, one of them being the issue of is there space in the university system for our transfers? And in some parts of the state, that issue is already raising its head. But we're pleased to say that with our commitment from UCF for our graduates, we're in good shape here. But that's not the case everywhere, and it certainly is a great concern. As you see in the handout that I gave you, the Florida college system we are calling the working solution. And I think just as Dr. Holzenbach mentioned some of the solutions that the universities can provide, as we're looking right now, just as you are, jobs. You heard it from our Lake County representatives, from some of the cities. All of us are focused on the same thing. And as you know, because of the work that we do, the college system is really the place where 2 out of 3 of the fastest growing, most in-demand jobs require some college, but not necessarily a 4-year college degree. And so those kinds of certificates and degrees are available through colleges in the Florida college system. And the partnerships that we have then with the 2+2 articulation, that makes it possible for our students to continue and take advantage of what's available in the university side. Another point, we awarded nearly 100,000 degrees and certificates in 2009, a very significant number that ranks us third in the U.S. in degrees awarded. And even more important probably for you, when we look at productivity, the number of degrees awarded to the FTE enrollment we serve, we're actually the leader in the southeastern states. They don't have a similar measure nationwide, so we don't know exactly where we stand there, but we think quite high. And the kind of impact from those is estimated at $1.5 billion in increased earnings of our citizens after they graduate from us and go on to get those higher paying jobs. So that impact on our state's economy, just from a single year's graduates, is estimated at $1.5 billion. And we have done this, as you know, in a time when our state revenues have been declining substantially. You've done as much as you can, helped us with the federal stimulus money, helped us to try to maintain our funding level, but with a 29% increase in student enrollment over the 3 years of this Great Recession, we've seen about a 25% decline in our state funding per student. So we are really in need of understanding the state budget constraints, know the situation you're in, but also saying we have really done our part, and to take more cuts and lose that federal stimulus money and not have it replaced is something that we just can't accommodate and still meet the need for our students. In the handout that I gave you, the slides that our chancellor put together, just quickly see that on that first page, where do most of high school students go to start their college education? It is in the Florida college system. 66%, 2 out of 3. The next one we just talked about with the increase in enrollment and the decline in state funding during that same time. The third one is what I talked about in terms of plugging the pipeline, that as we have increased enrollment, we're increasing graduates, we're not seeing the same increase in the space in the university for those graduates. That was one of the reasons for the development of the 4-year programs in many of the colleges, but even that is not going to be a solution by itself. The next page is looking at the operating budget, and there you can see the increasing share of the budget that is in yellow coming from student fees relative to state funding, and also that big chunk of $83 million sitting on top of this year's budget that came from stimulus money that's going away. So our legislative budget request primarily says if we can just get that money replaced, about $82 million, we think we can manage. It's not going to put us in a position of strength, but we believe we can do it and maintain the open doors. With the non-program fund request, you have done a tremendous job over the years with matching funds. Again, this facility is a testimony to the real power of leveraging those matching dollars and what we've been able to do. But without that, over the past 3 years, we now are up to about $154 million in unmatched funds in our state system. That happened before you put the prohibition in that we have to tell people they can't have any guarantee of matching anymore. This is money from before that happened. So with our foundation really becoming difficult for us as more and more students need financial aid to keep up with that need. Our community's been very generous and continues to do that, but those matching funds obviously made those dollars stretch so much further. So there are a number of things in the narrative that I gave you, which we went over last time. For those who were not there, if you have questions, in the interest of time, as I look at the clock seconds tick away, I'll yield to that time.
Okay, Representative Precourt.
Sure, just a brief question. Maybe we can get together afterwards or over the break or whenever to talk about it. I'm quite concerned with dual enrollment issue, with the potential for turning students away that could otherwise be accelerated through the higher education system, and at the end of the day, save us a lot of money by allowing these kids to proceed at their own pace rather than to hold them back and add 2 years to their higher education. So if we get together and talk about that, again, I want to express that I'm extremely concerned about turning away dual enrollment students.
Right. And I think that's one we share, because it makes so much sense with the whole emphasis on the race to the top and all the initiatives. So it would be counterproductive for us to be then narrowing that availability, because we just can't offer the classes that meet that demand.
Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I'm playing with in my mind, and I've voiced it to Senator Lynn already, and she's going to mull it over, and I'd like to offer it to Representative O'Toole, is the possibility of somehow being able to leverage PICO funds. We know the PICO is dwindling, but the matching fund program is an extremely valuable program to our system. And if we can somehow divert some of the PICO dollars to match some of the unmatched donations that are already out there, we can get these projects going. That's going to be an economic stimulus. Plus, it's going to encourage other donors to show our good faith as legislators to match their donations. I know of one donation that was for $3 million to one of the community colleges, and there was a string attached that said, you need to move this in a specified period of time. If not, then the money comes back to me, and we need to guard against that sort of thing.
Representative O'Toole.
We'll be looking at every dollar available, every place available. Some of the places that I think, I have a couple of questions that we can probably talk about it later as well, is the VOTEC schools. And whether or not we can continue to afford to have another arm of education, or should those be dissolved into the community college system or the college system. And I'd like your thoughts on that. And I know that, Susan Moxley has left already, superintendent. Oh, you're still there, oh good. It's something that I'm going to start to look at. We have to find some money somewhere. There is no new and additional sitting out there, so it's got to come from somewhere. To give it to you, I got to take it from someplace else. So I'm just wondering about your thoughts, and Dr. Moxley, yours, on whether or not that really belongs in the K-12 funding, or does it belong back over in the college funding?
And Dr. Mojock, I want to preface my comments by saying that I'm a huge fan of the community college system, and that I personally think that you all do a tremendous job of preparing the workforce and being able to adapt quickly to the current needs in the workforce and be able to address those. But I did want to give you one bit of slightly negative news, and that is I'm fortunate enough to serve on Governor-elect, now Governor Rick Scott's Transition Advisory Board. And he, as most of you who've been following probably know, he had these different transition teams go out and do interviews and come back with recommendations. And on one of our meetings with the 9 advisory board members, we were told that on the issue of community colleges, there were a lot of comments that they are not adaptable, that they're not meeting the workforce needs, and I think that that probably came from some in the workforce. My experience with the community colleges in my 5 counties has been, in my mind, a perfect example of how you have been. But that is a criticism that if you haven't heard already coming out of the transition team, that's going to be coming to you. So my advice to the community college system in general is to be very sensitive that that's the niche that the current administration thinks that you should be fulfilling, and fulfilling in a better way than apparently whichever community colleges they visited led them to believe it was. So that's your story that I think you need to kind of hone. And I think you do a great job, but and I don't know if any of the other members want to comment on that.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've heard it about ours, and I don't know whether that's because they didn't want to tell me personally or not, but there is some comments. And there's just a lot of overlap in a lot of places. And I think if we could just get that done, and the outcomes that you produce really speak for themselves. But I heard a comment that if a student goes in today and drops out in 9 short of 10 months, they're not in your numbers. that the only thing that are in the numbers are those that spend 10 months or greater, which sort of inflates your number. So I'd ask you to look at that and let me know the real skinny.
Yeah, when we meet, I can go over, there are unfortunately a number of different definitions. iPads for the federal government uses one definition of what's in the cohort. The state uses another. I mean, we track everyone, so we've got data on student retention and so forth. That, if we can share that, it's interesting because last time you were here, we talked some about this. And this is a summary dashboard that we give to our board of trustees on some of our indicators each year, but there are a number of others that we track as well. And so I'd be happy to follow up with you and meet and talk more in detail about that issue. The higher ed coordinating council is another one that's I'm sure going to be on your docket here coming up. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Members, anything else? Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Mojok, and just know that we're here to support you, so let us know what we can do outside of money. We'll try, but we can't make any promises. And thank you all for attending. We're going to